What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Man, exciting time in Michigan. Winter is almost gone, and hey, fingers crossed there. The ice is finally moving out of Lake St. Clair, out of Detroit River. It's an exciting time of the year for Michiganders, and there's bass fishing coming up. There's turkey season. But the reality is before we get into chasing gobblers and smacking those pigs, we got to talk about all things shed hunting, because it's still a great time to be in the woods. A lot of work left to do. You guys prepared all season long. You've been chasing these deer, and now you're able to kind of collect a little bit of trophy. But the reality is it's hard, all right? And it's not easy, and a lot of people come up empty-handed. So today in this video, we're going to talk about how to find these babies. Stay tuned. So first off, most guys think shed hunting's easy, all right? You wait until late winter, you walk around a few fields, and then magically antlers are just supposed to appear, right? But if you've ever actually tried shed hunting, you know the truth. And you can walk miles, you can walk for hours, and sometimes the whole weekend, and you won't find a single one of these things. Meanwhile, seeing all these people posting online piles of sheds, like they grew on trees. And then you're like, what the heck? Like, I don't get it. And so we're going to talk about why does shed hunting seem so much harder than it should be, right? So today I'm going to break down things like why most hunters struggle to find sheds, the biggest mistakes people make, and the strategies that will dramatically increase your odds of finding antlers this spring. If you love whitetails just like I do, scouting, understanding deer behavior, this video is for you. So let's get right into it. The first part of this is the reality of shed hunting. Shed hunting, it looks simple, but in reality, it's one of the most humbling things you can do as an outdoorsman and as a hunter. You can walk 5, you can walk 10, even 15 miles and still come home empty-handed. By the way, that's completely normal. But shed hunting is not about luck. There's a lot to it, a lot of strategy. It's about understanding the deer behavior after season ends. You think about what the buck just went through, right? They survived the long months of hunting pressure. They're calorie deficient. They're tired. And by late winter, the only thing they care about is they want to survive till spring. And finally, spring arrives, right? So that leads us to us actually getting into the woods looking for these things. But the reality is you're looking in areas where there's food, there's security, there's shelter from the weather. And a lot of times we're thinking about that during hunting season, but that's exactly how you should be looking at during shed hunting. But before we get into the tactics, I think we need to spend a little bit of time talking about the big mistakes people made. So this mistake number one here, guys, is you walk too fast, right? When you're shed hunting, you can't just wander around hoping to trip over one of these bad boys. Antlers they blend into the environment extremely, extremely well, just like these deer do during season. They look like sticks, they could look like tree roots. Even depending on where you hunt, they could look like corn stalks. So if you're walking quickly, you're gonna miss sheds that are probably literally feet away, if not inches. And I know that sounds crazy, but it happens all the time. So experienced shed hunters, they move slower, they scan, they grid areas. They're double checking spots that they know deer are probably laying down, trying to eat food, or moving through corridors. Because once you train your eye to recognize the antler shape, you'll start spotting them like everywhere. All right, mistake number 2. People search in the wrong places. Most hunters immediately walk towards food plots or crop fields, and yes, sometimes they're 100% there. I've done it. A lot of people watching this probably found them. But the best locations are usually areas where deer spend most of their time during late winter. So that includes things like bedding areas, transition routes, south-facing slopes, and thick cover near food sources. Bucks often drop these antlers too when they're resting, feeding, they're moving slowly. A lot of people think it's some violent encounter. It's not. Sometimes even when they're just running across fields. Mistake number 3 is the timing of the shed hunt is wrong. So if you go too early, bucks might still be carrying their antlers. If you go too late, rodents, other human might beat you to it, unfortunately. In most parts of the Midwest and northern states, peak sedge season usually happens between now and going into the end of this month. But once you start seeing bucks drop one side, the opening is happening. All right, so how do bucks actually drop their antlers? A lot of times hunters assume antlers just fall off randomly, but there are patterns. There's things we need to pay attention to. So typically bucks drop antlers when they're jumping fences, they're walking through thick brush, they're getting up from bedding, they're crossing ditches or obstacles, things to make their body jerk. And that's why travel corridors can be gold mines for these bad boys. So imagine a buck walking from bedding to food every night. He's taking the same trail. You know, they're creatures of habit. They're crossing over the same fence. They're walking through the same narrow path. And eventually this thing's going to fall on the ground. And when you start identifying those routes and those patterns on the property, your odds go way up. So this is where shed hunting becomes incredibly valuable, because it's not just finding antlers. You're learning exactly how deer use your land, which, you guys, like, the work starts right now for next year's deer season. So, all right, the best places to find sheds. I'm going to break this down. The first is definitely going to be late season food sources. So things like cornfields, soybean fields, brassica plots. You know, deer will spend a ton of time during the winter in these areas because they're replenishing their bodies from the rut. Obviously they're consuming nutrients and everything to stay alive. So walk edges slowly around those areas, looking for the trails and exits. In and out. And then the second part is the bedding areas, right? This is one of the most overlooked spots of when you're looking for sheds. But bucks spend most of their time bedding during the winter. They're tired, they're trying to replenish, they're exhausted. So you want to look for areas with thick cover, south-facing slopes, which we'll get into, and then areas protected from the wind. But when bucks stand up from bedding, that's when antlers drop. So third thing here, funnels and travel corridors. So funnels concentrate deer movement. I mean, you guys see this when you're watching cameras, you see paths, you see things happening, motion, everything's coming into play here. So you want to look at things like creek crossings, fence gaps, narrow timber strips, and then also ridge saddles, all right? Anywhere naturally deer funnel through, that's where you should be looking for these things. And if a buck loses an antler there, the odds are you will find it. The fourth thing is south-facing hillsides. This is actually really important here. So these areas get the most sunlight during the winter months. The snow melts faster, and the deer love bedding here because it's just warmer, because it's getting more sun. So many shed hunters consistently find antlers on these south-facing slopes. All right, how to find more sheds, you guys. So if you want to consistently find sheds, here's some strategies that'll work. Number one, grid search your property. Grid search your property. I'll pause, all right? You want to pick a very small section of the woods. You want to walk very slowly in lines, and then you want to make sure you cover as many inches of that grid as possible, and then you want to move to the next section. This will prevent missing spots, people walking over each other, you'll be missing sheds. So the second thing is get low. Like, get on your hands, get on your knees, different angles, crouch down. The different perspectives here while you're doing this can actually really reveal these things more often than you think. All right, and then number three, as always when you're out in the outdoors, you want to make sure you have good optics, all right? So polarized sunglasses reduce glare. They help antlers stand out a little bit more against the ground. The really small details matter here, all right? They're a big difference. All right, number four. Bring a shed hunting partner. It's always more fun doing this with your buddy, friends, family, etc. So two sets of eyes are always better than one. And honestly, walking miles and miles through the woods, spending hours is just a lot more fun when you're doing it with somebody else. All right, and then why is this so addictive? Like, man, your heart gets going, you get excited, but it's like, it's amazing. You find your first one, again, your heart starts beating, you start to walk up slowly. It's like as if you just harvested a deer, and then suddenly you're holding in your piece, like this thing right here, right? The antlers tell a really cool story, you guys. First of all, it tells the buck that it survived the winter, which is amazing, right? It shows the genetics of that deer. You can really inspect how this deer is looking. And then sometimes you can really connect dots on all these deer that you've been watching for sometimes years. I don't know about you, but I've been watching deer in times that are on the cameras for 4 or 5 years, and shed hunting tells a wonderful story. But it's not just about the antlers. It's about learning the woods, understanding deer, and just overall becoming a better hunter. So real quick, if you tried to shed hunt and you've struggled, you cannot get discouraged. Plus, anytime being in the woods is like the best time ever. So a lot of times when we're out there, we miss these things. It's not every time do we go out there and find a huge truckload, but just slow down, focus on the right areas, really study how deer are starting to move from when they were moving in the winter to late winter. And when you understand their behaviors, their patterns, you will start to find more of these. And finally, when you spot that first one sticking out of the leaves, trust me, you will be hooked. It is one of the coolest feelings in the world, especially when you've been tracking these deer, watching them, maybe even see them during a hunt. But hey, if you've liked this video and you want more content about all things whitetail hunting, shed hunting, scouting tactics, I'm really into fitness and I post a ton of videos about my training or just more information about outdoor lifestyle, be sure to check out my videos. Please subscribe, share, comment. Tell me what works well for you guys. I love connecting with other outdoors people, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. Cheers.